what I want to talk about now, and why I have Leanne here, is because I want to talk about the thing that has frustrated me most, and that is how people have been viewing what Ford went through, what her choices were, and why she made those choices, how they are valid and normal, and go from there. There's so much there.
I think a place to start is when I saw a news report of President Trump's tweet, if, not even a question, a statement, if this had, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact quote, cool. If this had been as terrible, as a terrible crime, as serious as is being claimed, she would have made a police report. There would have been a police report many years ago, either by her or her loving parents. Mm-hmm. When I read that, I actually laughed out loud, not because I thought it was funny, but because it was so ludicrous. There are many, many reasons why survivors do not report sexual assault. Even to their, especially to their parents. That's usually one of the reasons. And one of the things Ford said is she wasn't going to go to her parents and tell them, I was at a party, I had a beer, I was with boys. Mm-hmm. She was someplace where she wasn't supposed to be. So note to parents, tell your kids, a good policy is tell your kids if you're ever in a situation where you are uncomfortable or you feel unsafe, call me, I will come and get you, and there will be no questions asked.
Mm-hmm. Right. And no punishment, really.
Right, and no punishment, absolutely, no punishment.
Or judgment, for that matter.
We could come back to that in another show. Yeah. So I was looking at statistics. There's trying to say how many sexual assaults go unreported is something that can only be estimated, obviously, because it's something that's not reported. Mm-hmm. So looking at various statistics, what seems valid, and Washington Post, I saw this in a Washington Post report, that it's probably most accurate to give a range, and their estimate, which I think is probably pretty accurate based on my experience working with survivors, is that about 5 to 20% of actual rapes or sexual assaults are reported. That means about anywhere from 80 to 95% of rapes and sexual assaults go unreported. And of those rapes that are reported, very few go to trial, of those, okay, let me put it this way. Of those that are reported, only about 1 to 2% end up resulting in actual jail or prison time.
We have the RAIN figure, if you want to put that up for a second.
Yeah, Mark, please do. Now, their statistics were that were a little different. Let me see. Go ahead and put those up.
I'm looking for my...
Their statistics, which I don't have here, were actually a little higher. I think maybe 33%, something like that.
Let me find...
According to NARAL, I think, said 28% get reported to police departments. But I would say if you want to make a generous estimate of how many get reported, 30 to 33%. That means
God,
we have at least
high.
At least 2/3 of rapes never get reported.
Right. Hey, Mark, could you put the RAIN figure up there, the one with all the little people figures, and it shows what number? Thanks. He's looking for it. RAIN stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and they gather statistics on these sorts of things. And just as an informal little poll, I put a poll on the Godless Bitches Facebook, the Atheist Experience discussion group, and Talk Heathen, and said, have you ever been assaulted? I didn't specify sexual assault. I'll come back to that. We've got one of them up here, and which one is that? It's very far away.
Yeah.
Well, basically, that's 9 out of 10 victims of rape are female.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Right.
Yes. So this is a great time to jump in and remind people, as I do at every opportunity, that we're not just talking about women and girls here. We're also talking about men and boys, and of course, people who identify as gender fluid are even more at risk for rape, sexual assault, molestation.
yeah.
Right.
And that was one of the things that came out of the military sexual assault scandal, which has not actually been fully resolved.
No, of course not.
One of the things that came out of that was that if you look at the numbers, just the raw numbers, there were actually more male rape victims than female rape victims.
Well, that's because there's more men in the military than females.
Exactly.
And
And
the
so
same
that-
would be true in prison, I'm sure.
That skewed the numbers significantly. The percentage of women sexually assaulted in the military was much higher
Right.
versus men. But it illustrated the fact that it is a problem. It's a problem not because there's all these gay men raping other men. It's a power thing. A power thing, an entitlement thing.
Exactly.
And the willingness of commanders to look the other way when this stuff is going on. And that's what we have right now with, in general. People are so willing to write off behavior that, it's obviously criminal, it's aggressive, it's, it is, some of it is, while not actual rape, it's a precursor to that. They're working their way up to it. And I saw a graphic recently that had sort of the behaviors that constitute normalization, and then there's some escalation where it becomes degradation, and finally, outright assault. And yeah, it's a spectrum. Every escalation builds on everything that happens previously. So if you make rape jokes or you say boys will be boys, or that's normalization. When you start calling women gendered slurs and degrading women for expressing their own sexual agency, now you're getting into degradation. And then when you move on to putting your hands on someone without their consent, now you're moving into assault.
That's all. Yeah.
What you're talking about is rape culture.
Exactly.
I have a friend or two who object to that term, but I stand by the belief that, to use your phrase, unfortunately, our culture in general normalizes rape and sexual violence.
Right.
It really, really does. And if you don't believe it, look at any romantic movie. Star Wars, famous one, where Han Solo kisses Leia. She doesn't want to be kissed, and it's romantic.
Yeah.
No, she's trembling. Yeah. God. So wrong.
Yeah.
Mark, there's another graphic, the one with the little people in it. It's got lots of little people in it. That one. Okay.
Yeah.
It shows how there are the number of women who are sexually assaulted, or I don't know if it's just women. I can't see this. Just the
I would say
thing.
people.
And then the number who report, the number who go to prosecution, and the number who actually, the number of women whose assault person, I can't think, sorry. Perpetrator is convicted is extraordinarily small. And, I mean, that's why. And the other thing that they don't even talk about is when you report, I started to say, I took this informal poll, and I said, have you ever been assaulted? I didn't even say sexually assaulted. And if you have, did you report it?
Right.
And it was just a yes or a no. And, of course, lots of people volunteered information that they didn't have to. But they said, of course I didn't report it, because I don't want to have the stuff go on that goes on. And there were people who said, yes, I reported it, and I regretted having done so because they put me through so much hell. It is not a victim-friendly system.
No, I could talk about that a little bit.
Please.
Yes, please.
So just want to repeat that I worked for over 22 years at the Safe Alliance, which is Austin's Center for Sexual and Domestic Violence, currently in private practice. And between those two experiences, I estimate I've worked with about 3,800 survivors of sexual and or domestic violence. So I have a pretty good background in this. And I always say, when it comes up with clients or anyone, I always express that I feel very strongly the survivor has the right to decide whether they are going to report or not. It is not the survivor of rape or sexual assault to stop rape in our society. We cannot put that burden on her or him or them. That because they've already been through an extremely intrusive, one of the most intrusive experiences anybody can ever have. They've already been through that. To then put the burden on them of stopping the rapist, may further compound the trauma that they're experiencing. In order for a sexual assault charge to have much of a chance, or to have a really even a minimal chance of going forward, it's necessary to go for a sexual assault forensic exam, a SAFE exam, which is an extremely intrusive and traumatizing exam. Further, then there's the interviews. Then even Austin Police Department has come a long way. I've worked with survivors who did report and had actually a really good experience with our sex crimes detectives, or even beat cops, where they were, very sensitive. Even so, it's a very painful, re-traumatizing situation to talk in excruciating detail about the assault. Not everybody has that good of an experience, and I've heard of plenty of people who had horrific experiences from law enforcement here and in other places. So no wonder people don't want to report.